Siman Gimel, Sif Beis, Beis Shmuel, Sif Kotten Ches. Before we look inside the Beis Shmuel, I'll provide an overview and an introduction where we'll list all the various opinions. Before I list the opinions, a quick definition of Lashon, of the Lashon of what means Lashon HaEdim and Lashon HaLoive. So Lashon HaEdim means that the shtar is written from the perspective of the Edim. So the Edim say, we, the undersigned, observed Reuven ben Shimon borrowed money from Levi ben Yehuda in such and such an amount on this date and so on, and here we are signing as the Edim. So that's called Lashon HaEdim, written from their perspective. Lashon HaLoive means written from the perspective of the Loive. So I, Reuven ben Shimon, it's an IOU note. I, Reuven ben Shimon, owe Levi ben Yehuda X amount of money, which I borrowed on this and this day, and the Edim sign to testify that that's valid. That's called Lashon HaLoive. The Mechaber listed his din as Lashon HaEdim din, and the Mechaber said that if it's written in Lashon HaEdim, it's valid to elevate a kohen bizman hazeh in these days to the status of a kohen. So if the Edim wrote that we saw how Reuven ben Shimon HaKohen borrowed money from Levi ben Yehuda, so that is sufficient testimony written from the perspective of the Edim to establish the fact that Reuven ben Shimon is indeed a Kohen. That is Bizman Hazeh. It establishes the Kohen to be able to be called to the Torah, Nesias Kapayim, and so forth. It is not proof, as we've seen before, of Yuchsin. For that you would need two Edim. The Rashba and the Ra, they say that Lashon HaEdim helps even for Yuchsin. So in other words, if the Edim wrote that they saw how Reuven ben Shimon HaKohen borrowed money, that is sufficient evidence for Yuchsin purposes. The Gemara upon which this is based only questions what's the din if you could be Mailin Mishtaris LeYuchsin based on the shtar being written from the perspective of Lashon HaLoive. So the Rashba and the Ra say that you could elevate to Yuchsin based on a shtar as long as it's written in Lashon HaEdim. The Rambam says even if it's written in Lashon HaEdim, it will not help to elevate the person to in terms of Yuchsin. And the Ran explains that the reasoning for this is because the Edim, as far as they're concerned, this person is a Muchsik L'Koyen. They see him getting an Aliyah first, and so when it says Reuven ben Shimon HaKoyen, it makes perfect sense that he's a Koyen from the perspective of the Edim, not that they did a proper Biro Yahadus and they've determined 100% that there's no problem with this person. They just see him being called to the Torah, doing Nesias Kapayim, and based on the strength of that, they give their testimony. It's a testimony that is used to identify this person. So this person is Reuven ben Shimon, different to another Reuven ben Shimon who's not a Kohen. This is Reuven ben Shimon HaKohen. And based on what do they say is a Kohen? Not because they did a thorough Biro Yahadus, but because they saw him get an Aliyah and so forth, and therefore they don't absolutely know for sure in terms of Yuchsin that he's a kosher Kohen. They only know that he behaves with the behavior of a Kohen, and for identification purposes that is sufficient. The Rambam would hold that if it was written in Lashon HaLoive, it would help for Truma D'Rabbanan and for Nesias Kapayim. And then we have the case of the Tosfos, that if there's two Yosef ben Shimons in a city, then the Edim will be extra careful. They'll be medakdek, and to make sure that they got the right Yosef ben Shimon, because two people have the same name. And so therefore, on the strength of that, the Tosfos is saying, in the case of where there is two Yosef ben Shimons, you could be mild the person to Yuchsin, even if it's Lashon HaLoive, according to Tosfos. And the Rambam would say that it wouldn't help to be mild them to Yuchsin, even if they're two Yosef ben Shimons, which would force the Kohanim, the Edim, to be medakdek that if one of them is Yosef ben Shimon HaKohen, because again, like the Ran's reasoning, it's merely that they see him behaving like a Kohen, and for identification purposes, to differentiate between him and the Yosef ben Shimon, who's not a Kohen, for this it's sufficiently strong a siman. Then we have a din in Choshen Mishpat. The Beis Shmuel introduced a din in Choshen Mishpat, and this din is also a similar case. There's two Yosef ben Shimons in a city, and one of them, the Shimon, the father in the Yosef ben Shimon, is alive. And so they would write, Yosef ben Shimon sheyichya le'erech yamim tovim, shlita. And based on that, you could extract money from Yosef ben Shimon, even though we say normally, hamotzim mechaveiroi olav haraya, you have to bring a solid proof before you extract money from somebody. But based on the fact that the Eidim wrote Yosef ben Shimon Shlita, and that Shimon is alive, that father of Yosef is alive, the other Yosef ben Shimon's father is not alive, and therefore they would be medaktik because this is an identifying siman. But in Choshen Mishpat, it says that's only if it's the Lashon HaEidim. If they write it, then they're going to be careful with and be medaktik in terms of a siman for identification. But if it's the Lashon HaLoiveh, so that's not strong. That's not considered strong enough of a proof because it's the person's own admission, and that's not a raya, an independent proof that's strong enough to be moitze mamen mechaveiroi. So the question is, if it's Lashon HaEidim, where the Shulchan Aruch in Choshen Mishpat will agree that is strong enough of an identification to extract money, so why wouldn't it be strong enough of an identification to be Mila, the person liyuchsin? Why is it strong enough for that? And you need a very strong threshold of proof to be moitze mamen. Why isn't it strong enough to be Mila, the person to yuchsin? And the answer is because it is good. Again, it's the same answer as the Ran. It's good as a siman. It's good for the koyanim to show in terms of for the Eidim to show that this is kohen in terms of identification. But it doesn't imply, and nor did the Eidim necessarily do, nor are they required to do a proper biro yahadus, a proper biro kahuna, to establish the fact beyond any reasonable doubt from a yuchsin perspective that this person's a kohen. All they're doing is they're saying this person's getting an aliyah, and therefore it's a valid identification purpose. And so there's no stira between the din in Choshen Mishpat and our din here legabe yuchsin. Finally, the Rashba says that it's dafka because it's written over there in Choshen Mishpat in Lashon HaEidim that it would be accepted to extract money from the person.